there are people who are able to do certain things that other people will not be able to do. It's not like you get up and you consciously decide, oh, this I have to do this. No, no, because it's already sort of deep ingrained in you, right? It's natural.
Welcome to another episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative Podcast. I have a very special guest with me, a very dear friend, Rado. Rado, how you doing, sir?
I'm well. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, man. I know you have a very interesting story. In the time that I've known you, I know some of your story, but I'm really excited about, hearing your full story. So tell me, Rado, give me the background, man, where you grew up, and, especially before you came to America. Tell us that story.
So, I was born in the Czech Republic, and normally I tell people, I'm sure, it won't be the first place that they guess.
Yeah.
But I always remind them that, I got blue eyes and all, if you can actually see well. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was born in the Czech Republic. And how that came about was Ghana was obviously a former British colony. And so as part of their relationship with Ghana, even after, Ghana became independent, I think one of the things that happened was all the top students, they were shipped abroad. So, and it's funny, Cuba was one of them.
Yeah.
Cuba, the UK and all that. So my mom, I think she was a good student, so she got a scholarship to go study abroad for free for university. She ended up in UK, and then once you're in UK, they sort of disperse you, through the, mostly to the Eastern Bloc, countries, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Poland, all that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, she ended up going to Czech Republic, went to Charles University over there, and the long story short, her boyfriend at the time was placed in Germany. I think Germany or England. And anyways, that's how I came about. Was in medical school. I got conceived in the Czech Republic, and soon after, sent me over to live with her sister and my grandma, her two sisters and my grandma in Ghana.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
So, moved to Ghana, lived with them a little bit, and at 9 they put me in the boarding school. It's funny, I was known to be a rascal.
Yeah.
Right. I was one of those guys, always up to something, right? Yeah. And while I was in Ghana, lived with my aunt for a little bit. Lived with different people. I joke around that I was a foster kid, but not in the true sense of foster. I'll live with a family for a while, but I was such a rascal that people could only tolerate me for so long. It's like after a while, you gotta come pick this kid up. So literally, I'll be with different people for 2 weeks, and I think that came about when my aunt at the time that raised me also got a green card to come to the United States. So. She had to make a decision, right? I'm sure she put me in a boarding school, right, at age 9, right? So, was in the boarding school from 9 to about 15, and then moved over here.
Yeah.
My family applied for green card and everything for me. They left the Czech Republic, and applied for green card once they came over here under asylum, and then eventually got their paperwork. They, applied for me, and I joined them when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
Right. But the funny thing is, it was the first time I met my family.
Yeah.
My mom, actually, I guess my two siblings, half brother, half sister, and my adopted father, who, not my original father, but, I never met him. But my mom, I guess she remarried, she married someone from the Czech Republic. So when I moved over here, it was the first time I actually met my biological mom.
Wow.
So, just look at it this way, born, within around a year or so, they sent me to Africa, Ghana, and that was it. Never met him again. And so my aunt who raised me, she's actually the person that nurtured me. It's almost like I tell people I got two moms. My biological and my mom, the mom that actually raised me. And so to this day, that's, I suppose you could say, that's who I really consider my mom, right? So
what about your mom's other family, like your grandparents? Did you ever, when you were in Ghana, did you ever connect with them?
I never knew my grandfather. I think he had already passed. I think, because I never really met him ever. But I knew my grandma. I was very fond of her, and she, she was awesome. She passed away in 2000, long after, I think 5 years after I moved over here. So, yep.
Okay.
So it's my grandma over there, my two aunts. So my mom was one of three sisters. So the older one, and then the middle one. So the middle one's the one that really took me and raised me into comfort. Yep. So
No, aunts are the best, man.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. So when you came to America at 15, this is literally the first time that you're meeting your mother, essentially, right? And then so you have a stepdad, and then you have, two siblings,
yep,
right?
half siblings.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are your younger siblings because you're your mom's first child.
Yep.
Okay. So you meet your mom for the first time. So when you come to America, what's your introduction to America? Where do you go first?
Oof. Obviously landed at JFK. They drove from here to pick me up, and drove back Burke, Virginia.
Burke, Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Burke, Virginia is where moved to Burke, Virginia. I joke around with people like when you live in the DMV area, right? It's like a bubble.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're talking about a kid from Africa, where by the way, I loved it there, right?
Yeah.
When I lived there, the things you see about Africa is what this news channel, whether it's CNN or the other ones, want to show you with that kid, sitting on some garbage with a fly and all that stuff. But I did have a good, life in Ghana. It's a beautiful place, beautiful people. Awesome. There's resources and everything there, but you're still coming from Africa.
Yeah.
Right. And you land over here, and I joke with people like I could have ended up anywhere. I could have ended up in some place in Alabama, like somewhere in Mississippi. Some of the, I guess, less desirable, not that as a state, but there are certain pockets even around here. I ended up in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was my first introduction to U.S. and it was great.
Yeah.
And so went to high school there for 3-4 years. Yep, graduated, and then went to school in South Carolina for a year, and then transferred back to George Mason. Right, I was going through the recruiting stuff, and I chose South Carolina. I had offers from Virginia Tech, Villanova, Florida International, and somehow I just got drawn to this small school in South Carolina. They loved me, like the way the coach recruited me and everything. And so I went there for a year, but I always had these injuries, and most of my friends grew up with. They all went to the Virginia Tech where I was supposed to go, but declined to go there. UVA, JMU, all around. So I was getting injured a lot and decided to transfer. And come back closer to home. So that was that was a brief 4-year period. That I spent in Burke, and also getting to know my family. So
talk to us, man. Let's start back. So you get here at 15, and we're gonna get into all the other stuff after high school. So you get here, and you're meeting your mom. You're meeting your siblings. You're meeting your stepdad. You're in Burke, Virginia, which is I'm sure completely different than what it looks like now, right? So talk to us about like transitioning into like the American school system, because you're either going into the 9th grade or you're going into the 10th grade at this point, right? So what was that transition like for you? Like your first day going into an American high school?
It was interesting. Mind you, I'm coming from a boarding school, and actually in Africa, most kids actually, I think every school, you have to wear uniform. Private school or government school or one of those missionary schools. No, you always wear uniforms, right? So there was a lot of. I'll tell you actually a funny story. I land and immediately I go into the house, and I had to use the bathroom, right? And I sit on. I think I got here in April, right? So halfway through, so I literally just did the last 3-4 months left in high school. I mean freshman year, right? And I open the door and I go into the bathroom and I take a seat and immediately I jump up, right? You can't, it reminds you of, have you seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy? Those type of stuff, right? It's kind of like, I sit and I just jump up, right? I'm like, what the hell? Because the seat was cold, the spring, you know what I mean? So the toilet seat is cold, right? And it was funny, I tell this story because I'm like, man, it's the smallest details. Right, here I am, and we had WC in Ghana and all that stuff, but it's just I never sat on one that's cold. You know what I mean? It's spring, things like that. And when I was in Ghana, I also had I got malaria a lot because of its mosquitoes, right? And there are two things that when I landed here, the smallest things that I was like, wow, it's different. One, the flushing the toilet, and it's like consistent. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow. That's I don't have to like right. And you know, when I was back home, you know, at the time, right, you know, water is an issue and all that stuff, and you know, and then the fact that I was like sitting there going, I never have to have malaria again, ever, right? But anyways, that was the first two things that hit me.
The little
right?
things.
The little things that hit me when I got here. I'm like, okay, two things that I never want to deal with again. That's a change. And I go to high school. It's like I get here, I'm asking. I think I got here, and the next week I'm starting school. And so I'm already thinking uniform. Right? Because in Ghana, when you're going to those places, like you plan these things ahead, right? You know, and so you know what uniforms you're going to need. You go get, you know, measured, sewn up, and all that stuff. And I'm starting school next week, or actually, I don't know if it was probably just maybe I got here on a Thursday and school starts Monday, right? And they're like, oh no, you just go in casual clothes. You just wake out of bed and just walk into school, right? So that was the things that I had to get used to. Right? I'm like, you mean I could just get up and just put on any shorts and any t-shirt, right? So you go to school and everyone's just wearing whatever, right? So that was quite a change and adjustment. Either I guess an easy adjustment, right? I don't have to worry about uniform and being tucked in and all that. Some of the other things were the nature of the way the classes are set up, right? You know, you're in Africa and you're in one class. You know what I mean? Like you're literally in that class, and when the period changes, so you know that from 9 to 10 is math. 11 to 12 is English. And normally it's the same teacher. Right? You know, they teach you math, they teach you English and all that stuff, right? But over here, you're literally 45 minutes in one class. You get up, you know, you got to learn in the school, the schedule, the map of the school, you know, especially being new, where each class is, right? Obviously, that took me
What high school?
Lake Braddock High School.
Lake Braddock. Okay, so this is a big suburban high school.
Oh, this is a big suburban. Actually, Lake Braddock is a secondary school, right? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's the biggest, or at the time was the biggest school in Virginia, because you know you have the middle and the secondary high school combined.
So this is a major transaction.
I mean, major
transition for you.
You throw me into this, and I'm like, you know, again, you know, stuff like Crocodile Dundee, you know, the cars like, you know, looking around like what's going on here, right? So you know, getting used to that, right? Uniforms, changing classes, different teachers. You know, I think it probably took me a whole 2 months to get used to. One different teacher's name, your locker, right? Different teacher's name and different classes and the things that go on, you know.
So tell me about your name, right? So when you come in, your name is pretty straightforward, right? So tell us about your name. And the reason I'm asking you that is because when you come to, like when you go to school, especially when you're coming from another country, right? Especially when you come to like a suburban middle school or high school in America, usually you realize like kids can literally tell the teacher what they want to go by. So you can go in there and say, hey, call me, you know, Bobby or whatever, you know. So tell me about that. When you came, what did they call you, and did you ever tell them to call you something different? Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, I just want to mention one other thing. One other adjustment was the education system, right? Once I got, and I'll get back to the name, but I'm used to, you know, and actually it was the major adjustment, but the easy adjustment, right? I'm used to studying, and literally every exam was, if there was no, I didn't know anything about multiple choice. Multiple choice wasn't an option, right? You know what I mean? So, you know, the closest to multiple choice was true or false, right? And even that, even if true, you have to explain why. If false, you have to explain why. So everything every answer had a substance behind it, right? They needed to make sure that you know the stuff and not just, you know, glance over and spit it out, right? So that was one of the adjustments. I get this and it's like, I got 50 questions that were multiple choice, and I'm like flipping through, like, you know, I don't have to write a short essay, a short answer, right? Just select A, B, C, or D. That's it, right? So it's a huge adjustment because I get in, I remember, I mean, immediately in the National Honor Society, because I'm coming from a place where you really had to study and absorb the stuff, right? The funny thing is, I start out hot with amazing grades, and it starts slipping a little bit. And then I realized why. I got lazy. Right, I got lazy because now I realized, I really don't have to study. Like I just got to like glance through stuff and kind of like memorize stuff, right? I don't have to put in the same work. And you go multiple choice. You got a 25%, you know, chance of good. Then you could do the reason of deduction and all that, and then you actually down to 50. So I kind of got to, you know, I felt like it was easier, but on the flip side, it's actually harder. Right, because becoming lazier affected the way I studied. You know what I mean?
And I'm like, oh no, you still got to know the stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it was just a little different, like one of the other stuff. But no, so the name, so if you look at my full name is Rado Pletka, right? And if you really want to pronounce it the way it should be, like they do in Stabbing, it's actually you roll your tongue. It's like Rado Pletka, right? You know, you're in US and you know, no one is rolling their tongue anyways. So it's Rado Pletka, and it's on the soccer field that a buddy of mine, you know, Adam Trusty, basically started calling me Rado. Like it wasn't even Rado, it was Radu. You know. And I was like, where'd you get Radu from? There's no U, it's R-A-D-O, but he called me Radu, and it just became Radu, and other people just started Rado, you know, people that saw like, oh, it's the first four letters, so then other people started calling me Rado, and I think it got stuck. And the funny thing is, it's actually become my professional name, right? Where it really isn't, right? And it was easy on the soccer field, you know, you weren't going to say Radovan, pass the ball, it's easy to say Rado, pass the ball. So that was the name, but it was also interesting, right? I joke around these days with people, I'm like, yeah, you know, there's some stereotypes, and you just use it, you know, take advantage of the stereotypes, you know, if it works for you. But, you know, it took a while, people getting used to, right? You see this kid, this guy from Africa, and I'm black and all that, and then, but I have a Slavic name. And that's where the Rado actually also, I loved it because I never had to explain myself ever again. Because it's always Radovan. Radovan's like, where's the name from? But when it's Rado, whatever, you know, so.
They just go with it.
Yeah, that was
until
adjustment.
Until they see the last name.
Exactly, until they see the last name, right? That was also an adjustment for, you know, different people. So, you know, go from Radovan to being called Rado, you know, and Radu sometimes, you know, and and it got stuck.
So talk to us about that transition, right? So it sounds like, you know, academically it was smooth for you because you're coming from a more rigorous, you know, academic background.
Right.
So when you get here, you know, was soccer one of those things that helped to, you know, help you to make the transition easier? You know what I mean? Because that's like the universal language.
It did, right. And, you know, I'll say some things about Africa in general, you know, and those adjustments, because sometimes when people look at some of these adjustments, it makes it seem as if, oh, they're an adjustment because Africa is backwards or stuff like that. No, it's different, right? You know, you're talking about places where, yes, they don't have the resources as US and all that. So, you know, soccer was great, but, you know, a perfect example, a funny thing was, you know, I'm used to playing barefoot in Ghana, right? Because when you go to South America and Africa, you know, most people, like you from small town, you play barefoot, you know, you play on the streets and all that stuff. So it was normal. I remember I go to the soccer field the first time, they're like, oh, we have a soccer team, you play soccer. So now everyone is trying to recruit me. You know, the soccer players, oh, this kid from Africa, he must be good, all that stuff. And so I go home and I'm like, I tell my mom, well, I asked them, when is the spring goal going to start? I'm like, what do you need? You're going to get jersey and everything, but you need you need cleats. So I go home and I tell my mom, you know, I need cleats. Let's go buy cleats. My mom goes, oh, yeah, I know, you know, where you can find cleats. You know, she's thinking about Kmart. That's like Kmart. So she's like, no, on my way home, I'll get you some cleats. I don't know any better. Never really wore cleats in my life. So she comes home and she brings me these cleats, high tops, the Rollins, right, baseball ones. So she just went and just picked them cleats up. So I remember I showed up to the soccer field to practice, and you know, we get out and everyone's like, I put my cleats on and everyone's just looking at me and going, no, what is this guy doing? Like, you know.
He's a shortstop.
Right. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, look, like, why is everyone looking at me? Right? So a buddy of mine, Sharif, his parents are he was born here, Egyptian kid. He's like, dude, man, what are you wearing? Why are you wearing this? I'm like, no, it's cleats. My mom bought it for me. So he used to laugh at me. He's like, no, man, this is for baseball. And I had no idea what baseball is. I don't even know, right? I just got here a week ago. So that was a funny, you know, little, you know, tradition. I remember I went home and I lost one. I'm like, what? Why'd you bet me this stuff? But again, I'm also from Africa where I'm like just grateful. You know, I got cleats. So it wasn't like, I could imagine the typical American kid was going to go home and yell at the parents. Right? I just wonder, I'm like, oh, I think it's the wrong cleats. Which my mom, of course, is arguing with me. No, that's cleats. I'm like, I know, but I think there is a different one for soccer and stuff. So that was funny. But no, it was great because immediately you make friends. Right? And, you know, I was pretty good player, I was pretty decent player. So, you know, you make friends from there. And most of those guys are still good friends of mine to this day. You know, so it definitely did make the transition. And then after that, you go to class and it's like, oh, shoot, that's one of my teammates, man. You know, and so like, it's all of a sudden I'm in classes with different people that I met on the soccer field. So now organically I've made friends, right? And so when they see you, they also, hey, Rado, come sit over here. You know, we had assigned seats and stuff, but you know, it made things there. You go to cafeteria and you go to lunch, and the soccer guys are like, come sit with us, right? You know, in the neighborhoods, you know, all them those that played soccer will walk together and all that stuff. So I would say it definitely did help me with the transition. Extremely important.
Now that you're settled in, you're playing soccer, you're progressing through high school, right? So you go through your junior year, before your senior year. What are you thinking in high school that you want to do after high school? At that point, are you thinking? What are you thinking?
So man, this is one of those eras in my life, you know, where it's, I don't know, it's kind of like that whole thing between the conscious and the subconscious and all that. Like, imagine I've just got in here halfway through my freshman year, so that doesn't even count. Like, you get in 3 months in the summer. So I literally got sophomore, junior, and senior year. Most of these kids, some of them are taking SAT prep classes freshman year. Like some of them 8th grade, you know, they're preparing all that stuff. I never took one of those ever, right? It's, you know, immigrant family also. I'm the first kid going through this stuff system, and all that, right? You know, mom, you know, she was a medical doctor. She was a surgeon in Czech Republic. And then she was then transitioned to become a child and adolescent psychiatrist, right? So she's trying to do her, residency, studying at the same time for her board exams, and so she's busy. My adopted dad, you know, so here tell the story. The story behind the name is when my mom remarried, you know, he basically adopted me immediately, right? I came with I was part of the package, right? So he gave me his name. So I'm Rado Pletka Jr. Funny thing, right? You see this guy, you know, met blonde, blue-eyed Czech guy, my half brother and sister, and my mom, and I'm the least. Like, I'm the only one that looks like the least like him, and yet I have his name. I'm a junior, right? And it's sort of like one of those, you know, things. But so Rado Pletka Jr. But anyways, so I'm in, and I have 3 years, you know. And again, looking back, that's how I'm processing it, right? But at the time, I didn't know. I'm just floating. I'm like, oh, go to high school, you know. And in Ghana, and you know, based on the UK system, you had A levels, O levels. There are those things that, you know, certain exams. Even to go from one class to the other, you actually have to take these exams that move you up. You know, you're going freshman year, you're progressing. You know, it's those transitions were easier here than over there. You know, I mean, there were the major exam that you take is SAT, and you take it your, you know, junior, senior year, and even once you take it, you're done. You could get it done your sophomore year, and you never have to take it again. But you know, in Ghana and some of these Europe, UK education system that follows it, these are after every year, and the major one is right after your senior year to transition to the next one, right? So those are things that, again, I'm looking at it from my perspective. Oh, this is easier. You just have to show up to class and you just flow through the system. So I didn't really follow the same path as a lot of these kids, right? People were taking SAT pre-class. I was just like floating through, right? I always wanted to be in the army, right? I always, you know, in Ghana, when I was not in the boarding school, before I even went to boarding school, I lived in an army barracks, right? Mind you, at the time I moved to Ghana, it was under military rule. Major General John Rawlins, right? He was considered a dictator. You know, he got to power, you know, through a coup d'etat. So I was surrounded by a lot of army people, right? You know, my best friend actually at the time was, you know, I joke around that he's Libyan, but, you know, his dad was in the commandos, so he'd been stationed in Libya, and so they lived there and all that stuff, right? You know, and so I was always surrounded by the army, guns, like all this stuff, you know. I went to school in those civil servants and the army. There were specific areas that the kids went to school, you know, like the, you know, Burma camp, like it's a barracks, you know, in the schools, you know. So if your dad was, let's say, the Air Force, you went to the Air Force, you know, elementary school, the army, but they were all in the same compound. So, you know, it's like Garrison was here, this was for the military police students and all that. And I happened to get in because my aunt at the time was a civil servant, and I was connected to, you know, the army people because of my friends and stuff. So I went to Garrison. And so, for me, I always grew up with that army mentality ever since I was a kid, right? And around them and the way they did things, the discipline, you know, all that stuff. So I came here and I wanted to join I knew I wanted to be a commando.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a Marine.
Yeah.
Like all those things, and I always call them badasses.
Yeah.
You know, I always said I want to be a badass. Those professions that,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, as I've gotten older, my idea of a badass is sort of like expanded, right? Like anyone who is good at what they do, right? The best teacher is a badass. Like the best, you know, engineer, like people like that, right? You know, but it was always the Army people, right? So that's what I wanted to do. I was set, right? And it was ingrained in my mind. So I remember junior year, and I was still playing soccer good, and I started getting recruited. But I'm like, then around the same time, I saw Top Gun. So I'm like, oh, I want to be in the Army and all that stuff. I added something else. It's not just a Ranger or commando. Now I could also be a F-16 jet, you know, fighter pilot. Yeah. So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm soccer. I'm not even looking at recruiting stuff. You know, I'm just, I go to the ROTC. You know, I fill all the stuff, so I'm following that path. That's what I'm going to do. And my eyes start failing me. You know, I came here with like, you know, perfect eyesight, but I think my junior year, I'm like, I took the exam and it's like, oh, you're going to have to wear, you know, I think it started with my driver's license, right? You know, they cover your eyes and you have to read the stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't seeing it. So they recommended contacts and all that stuff, glasses and all that. So I go to ROTC, I'm trying, they're like, nope, I'm sorry, but, you know, you can't do any of the stuff that you want to do, right? And it was funny. I'm like, okay, so I want to be a fighter pilot. I can't do that because you can't fly planes. You need like you need like 20/80 vision like that. Right. So I'm like, okay, why can't I be a commander? And like the guy's like, well, you know, like these sort of position on any given moment's notice. Like you can't be like, oh, now let me try to put my contacts on and all that stuff, right? So I'm like, shoot, now what am I going to do? That's all I wanted to do, right? To this day, my favorite movie is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando, right? Just everything about it, like, you know, these experts and stuff. And Delta Force. Delta Force, you know, is still Chuck Norris is still my favorite, you know, like theme song. Dun, 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 dun. Like, that's how much I'm into the Army, right? Like, it's still ingrained in my head. So then I'm like, oh, crap, I guess I need figure something out, right? I can't go in the Army. I'm good at soccer. Now I'm starting getting recruited. And it's amazing, Derek, how certain moments, certain situations, you know, it's just in any given moment's notice, what you think you knew, what you wanted, or like what positions that you have. And that even comes in real life now, like people's opinions. Like people are like so stuck on certain opinions. And I'm like, something can happen that all of a sudden gets you off that side of thinking, right? And for me, it was those things where I'm like, shoot, I guess I got soccer, right? You know, I'm no longer thinking this, and I become soccer. And literally, I only mentioned that because that decision, me not being able to get in the Army because the guy sat there and said, nope, you don't qualify because your eyesight and all that stuff, decided if soccer was my fallback, I guess I'm going to go play soccer. Literally think about that. I guess I'm just going to go try to, you know, play soccer and go to college. And that's, you know, I'm sitting here as a soccer guy, right? But in that moment, it would not have happened. I probably would be, I've done several tours already. And if I'm still alive, you know, from those tours, I'll be sitting here maybe working at the Pentagon or something, right? Or something like that. But that's what happened. And so then my junior year is when I realized, I guess I got to take soccer serious and do all that stuff. So I started going to camps, and I remember going to my father once, you know, in the basement. He had his office in the basement. He was a translator, so he traveled a lot, right? And I said, give me $500. And he's like, for what? I'm like, all right. Literally, there's a story with him. You guys are immigrants. You know, I don't want you to pay for college. And therefore, give me $500, and in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to go earn myself a soccer scholarship. Again, mind you, I've just gotten into the idea of, oh, I guess you can go to soccer, go to college and play soccer. There's a thing, right? I'm like, oh, okay. So I go to, he's like, okay, I'll write you a check. And my dad loved me. My doctor, he liked me a lot, anything I needed, right? And part of it was, I guess he wanted me to feel, so, you know, part of it is like, oh, anything. And so he gave me $500. I registered for Duke University soccer camp and William and Mary. William and Mary was the first one. I went over there. I did decent. I'm like, but I didn't get any. And that's when colleges recruited from. They would come to your high school game or camps. We didn't have these college showcases. I'm talking, I graduated in 98. You know, we didn't have college showcases. You know, now it's like, you know, big business, all that. But like it was, So you went to a camp, or they came to watch your high school game, or sometimes your club game, or some just a regular tournament. So William and Mary, I come back and it's like, nope, no take. I did well there. So now I'm left with one more week. That's a Duke camp. Good. So I met a friend at William and Mary camp, and so he happened to be going to the Duke camp as well. So I come home and my dad said, okay, how are you going to get there? I'm like, oh, I met this kid, and he's going to Duke camp too. So then parents called, it's, you're sitting here and everything is easier now and all that stuff. Back in the day, we didn't have GPS. I remember when my first time I was here, you still take the map and plot, your direction, like we're doing a road trip and all that stuff. So my parents called landline. With the parents arranged where they live, so they're going to drop me off at their house close to Woodbridge and all that stuff, right? So I go to Duke camp, and you remember I'm on my last luck. That's it. I asked for $500, spent $250 at William Mary, and $250 at Duke camp, and these places, other colleges come to it. So over there, man, Villanova, Florida International, Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech really wanted me. There's a kid born in a very cold weather place. And when I moved here, we would go there in the summers, and I've been in business and all that stuff. And I lived in Africa, warm weather place, tropical place. And my whole idea of Virginia Tech wanted to give me everything, like, half athletic scholarship, half academic scholarship. So basically almost full scholarship. I think it was going to be 95%. And then I'm sitting there going, I'm looking around, I'm like, where's Virginia Tech? Never been, all this stuff. They're like, oh yeah, it's out in the mountains, Blacksburg, all this stuff in the valley. I'm like, oh man, that's probably going to be too cold. So never visited, right? And it's, obviously I don't advise other people, like, be curious, do research. But it's a teenager making almost a foolish decision. Like saying no to somewhere, and it's a very good school, right? Florida International, they wanted me to come and do summer school of math, take a math classes for summer school to get in, because my SATs, I didn't do SAT preps, like I said, and all that stuff. So, I didn't get like 1,400, that was when I think 1,600, right? And I remember I wasn't a great test taker. I was a good student, but, and the reasons I had ADHD, I think all soccer players, most of them have ADHD, right? Except for the few, that just, and so I would not do well in exams, even in class, right? I'll get 100% in all my, different things in class, my homework, all that stuff. But I always wanted to be the guy that finishes first. Like, I look around, I have to finish. So SATs, the idea of sitting for 4 hours, right? A kid are like, after an hour, I'm just like out of here. So I'll be the kid that I'll get the exams back and I'll be reviewing, and the things you got wrong, I'm like, what? I got that one wrong. And it's so simple. And it was simply because I just didn't have the patience.
You were rushing.
I was rushing through things. So I do the SAT. I did it once, and that was it, right? I knew it wasn't my thing. So I take it and I get 1050, right? Now I'm going into it. People are like, oh, yeah, just writing down your name and all, that's already 500. So I get 1050. So I'm like, so you're telling me I'm that, like, terrible? Like, I got, you hooked me up with 500 and I only got 550, like, extra. Like, that was, and it's funny looking at it, but I knew I didn't want to take it again. Now I had buddies that took it, they got 1,200 and stuff, and they're like, I got to take it again. And they'll still do SAT preps. So I didn't do any of that. And again, if I was in Ghana, like if it was in that mode, the way I used to study, I would have done better.
Absolutely.
Right? But that was the part I was saying, I got lazier because I'm like, oh, multiple choice. I don't even have to study. I'm pretty sure I could get 50%. So Florida National tells me, we want you, the coach said, but you got to come in, your math scores were lower and all. And I'm saying, again, another decision I make as a foolish teenager. The first one I'm not going to take because it's too cold and it must be colder. And later on I found out it's not it's as cold as here. Right? It's a great school. The Florida National thing, I did not want to go spend my summer there. I'm like, man, high school just finished, just graduated June 17th. You ask me to come to college, start like July 10th, right? And by the way, preseason normally started like mid-August. So basically, I'm looking around going, oh, my buddies are going to be spending 2 months enjoying their summers before the next transition.
They're going to be at the beach.
So I turned that down too. So I'm left with this thing. And then Mason sort of liked me, and all that stuff. But I didn't push. But it was this Division II school. At the time, it was one of the best, Francis Marion University in South Carolina, one of the best Division II school and a good business school. Small school, and because I grew up in the boarding school, I remember it was the only place I decided to visit because I had written off for the National and Tech. So I go visit, and it's something funny, the recruiting tactics, right? They send this girl to come pick me up, and I'm talking about high school kids, so, send this girl, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, good looking girl, that's all. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're going to have fun here, yeah, we have all these parties, you're going to be seeing me. Mind you, I never saw her ever again. The 4 years, the year I was there, the year and a half, I'm like, later I'm like, man, they have these recruits, they probably went and found some model, someone like, yeah, you're going to pick this guy up, and all. So they flew me in, the guy wrote this amazing article about me, and at the time, I was a pretty good player, and he's like, the article literally said, quite possibly second on the best technical player I've ever recruited. I'm bringing into the school. So, I'm like, wow, they feel like that about me, feeling myself, right? So I'm like, I'm in. Now you go to South Carolina. The girl that picked me up from, when I landed was, she's like, oh, we're 50 minutes from Myrtle Beach. We spent, so I'm sold on this girl who's picking me up, right? Like, okay, in the South, the weather is great, beach is close by, right? And it's small campus. I need my confined space. Like I'm that, right? I don't like too much open space. Like I'm like, oh, okay, it's a small school, right? I know people that went to Penn State, some of these big schools, and they're like, man, it takes me half a mile to walk to classes. That was me, right? I'm a homely type of guy, right? And then boarding school, I was, there was a gate, so that's what I'm used to, right? And so, I got sold in the school, and it was a good school. It was a top 5 in the nation. And whilst I was there, we beat some Division I teams when we played them friendly. It was a really, really good, the German coach and all that, he recruited a lot of good players, right? So that was sort of like my journey on that side until I, graduated from, I transferred to Mason. I think that was around the time that I decided, okay, well, I've lost that whole Army stuff, and I had so much camouflage stuff, right? And so, so soccer became a thing. And funny enough, I actually, even with that, I didn't want to be a soccer player. It wasn't a dream to be a professional player, right? I wanted to be a radiologist, a doctor. And I remember I think my sophomore year, we took a road trip cross country with my family, and along the way my dad did it, he plotted places where he knew people. So instead of staying in hotels, he made arrangements, so we stayed with friends, right? I think we only stayed in a hotel once or so. And so the first stop was to Tennessee, and he had a friend there, and he was a radiologist. I remember going into the house and, getting a tour, and, I went into his office, and he had all these images, and, so I'm like, what does he do? The guy saying, I fell in love with that. I'm like, I want to be a doctor, and I want to be a radiologist. Right. Later on I'll come back to the story about radiology. So that was sort of like my journey, where I'm sitting now and being a professional, like having played in Europe and all that. It was never part of the calculation. It was never part of the calculation, right? It's certain things that happened that basically steered me in that direction.
And I think what's interesting is how you talk about going back to Ghana, going into boarding school, being on a military base, and how that sort of influenced you, right? So a lot of what you were exposed to, it kind of influenced sort of the career options that you explored, right? So for a long time, you really explored the idea of going in the military, right? Then going cross country, you stop in Tennessee, you meet this doctor, this radiologist, and then now you're like, okay, I kind of like, how happy this person seems. So now let me explore this career.
And I think part of it was also, remember I mentioned that badass thing, right? Again, growing up, it was just, I'm more in Ghana. I mean, in these places that most Americans don't know what it's like living in these places, right? It's like where the Army, I mean, you're walking on the streets and, Army walking around with a gun, all that stuff. It's like in those places, people are used to it. It's not, it's like, so that's how I grew up. And I always saw those people as some of the most disciplined people. Which is true, right? People in the Army, I mean, going into that, right? And that's why I coined that whole badass. So this guy, for me, at that moment became a badass. The first time that I labeled or saw someone that was not in the Army or connected anywhere to the service, where I'm like, oh, badasses don't always, it's not just the Army, like, this guy's a badass and he's known to be a very good radiologist. So you study, I asked, okay, what do radiologists? I'm like, shoot. So basically, you have to be such a badass that, because the information that you're giving people have to be dead on accurate, right? Because you're literally sitting there looking at people's eyes, telling them that they have something, like there's something wrong. Like you've seen something in the image and that's right. And I'm like, it's not it's a stressful job, right? And to be that great at it, like you gotta be a badass. So that was my first instance of, okay, no, I can't go to the army, but I can end up being a badass in something else.
I think I'm going to use that because what it points to is really, I love your definition because in a sense you're saying someone who's good at whatever it is that they choose to do,
right?
Someone who's exceptional at it is in your eyes a badass, right?
Exactly.
And essentially, it's hard to get good at something that you don't enjoy.
Right? And you have to be so good at it that every time you work somewhere, you feel like I'm the best person here. Exactly. That's the badass mentality, right? And and those people are prideful. Like they are, this is what I do, and that is exactly the way I.
And if you're a badass and you're really good at it, you'll be compensated likewise. So if you're in the top 10 or top 5% of whatever it is that you're doing,
you do,
you'll be compensated like it.
You could say Zuckerberg is a badass. Like, you suddenly he decided, I'm going to, and he code and all that stuff, right? Was the guy that does all the media movies.
Tyler Perry.
He's a badass, right? And in a different instance, because look at who he is. I mean, most, you grow up, most directors like Steven Spielberg are like, different color, like it's just call it for what it is, they're white. And but then you learn about Tyler Perry. Man, this guy, he's one of the top directors.
Dominate your niche.
And it's like, he has a whole city set up in Atlanta. Like, he's a badass, right? It's he also have come out in the mode where it's kind of like the way you look at things, that it's a white man's world, it's a man's world, and then you have a woman that is able to accomplish and be like very good in that space. That's a badass woman.
Absolutely.
Tyler Perry is a badass, so because he doesn't necessarily fit the mold of what you knew of as directors, and Cameron and Spielberg and all that, right?
So let me ask you this, man. So now you're exploring the idea of becoming a radiologist, right? So walk us through. So you're at this college in South Carolina. You're there for your first year. You guys go on this cross-country trip, so you have the idea of becoming a radiologist. So pick it up from there.
Yeah, so I come back, and it's like, and again, and a lot of these brings me back to Ghana, right? Because I'm this guy that, like, I've lived in these two worlds. And even the whole time I was here, I still live in two worlds, right? I'm still super connected and attached to my Ghanaian, lineage and heritage roots and my friends. And I made friends and all that stuff, but even that I was still... Man, that was back in the day, people don't like, I still wrote letters to my buddies in Ghana. I still bought phone cards so I can call them, checking them. So I'm still living in these two worlds. I'm like, well, I live here, but like, I'm super connected. It's funny enough, when I got the green card to come over here, right? And, I was recently having a conversation with someone explaining to them the way the mind works and all that. I'm like, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I had a conversation the other day when I was telling the guy, some of the happiest people in the world, right? And I've seen it because I've lived in, I've traveled the world, and, even with soccer and even without soccer. And it's like, are people living in these villages and small towns. They don't know any, they have very little and they're so happy. You know what I mean? They have their own issues and stuff, but like some of the people that eat the best food, people living in villages and small towns, because they get their food right from the soil, right from the ground, right from nature, things like that. It's like, again, come back to the little things. So I'm going between, these two. Most in Ghana, you grew up in these places, it was school. You knew that every guy dreamt of becoming a professional player. And almost every guy, the kids that played, but not every kid in South America, Africa, like growing up in these developing worlds, dream of becoming a professional player. You know what I mean? And I think it's a misconception that every kid growing up in Africa won't be able to know. It's just you went to school and you knew that, some kids can become professional players. But unlike here where, it's almost like a plan where parents are, I'm putting my kid in this club because I want them to get a scholarship. I'm going, no, there is just, if you're going to become a pro, you dreamt of it. If you're going to happen, you're going to maybe get discovered or something. And those kids that wanted to, they also took it extra serious. But I grew up in middle-class family, educated family, and all that stuff. So school was it. I happened to also play soccer. Right? So again, I'm good in soccer. I'm playing. And radiologist, man, I'm still going through this. And that trip was before I asked my dad for that money for, right? 'Cause I think that was like after my junior year.
Gotcha.
As I started understanding that, man, I could go play. I really enjoy playing soccer, and I could go and play soccer. So I'm living in these two worlds. I'm really not thinking about it. It's becoming a possibility, and you learn more about, your buddies. you're trying to play in college. That's what you have to do. And so eventually that, being a radiologist was part, in the back. It was kind of like something I would do, but now soccer can take me somewhere. So I followed that path, get in school, all that stuff. I go and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go study medicine and all that stuff. I'm like, I look at my schedule. Not possible. Right? I mean, it is possible, but it's hard. Right? The old me from Ghana, if I was in Ghana, it's like, you just got to do it. But I'm sitting here going, here you have choices. I'm like, oh, really? I go to college. I could be study P. I could do whatever. It's the path of least resistance. And in Ghana, growing up in those places, that was never part of your mentality. You just do what you have to do. You have to do these 3 things, you got to get done. It wasn't, but let me find it. The idea of efficiency, let me know. It was just, you just get it done. Right? So I'm starting to, again, understand those things. So I'm starting also making easier choices. Right? So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And not that it's, there's anything wrong with it, but I'm going to do business. I'm going to do business because it's easier. There's the course load and all that stuff. It's easier.
And it fits into your schedule as a student athlete.
Into my schedule. That's it, right?
Because the labs, that's one of the things. If you're a student athlete, a lot of the science classes, especially if you're pre-med, if you take biology, you take chemistry, most of these classes have labs.
They have labs.
Which is going to cut into your
and
practice and travel time.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not during the class time. It's maybe 4 o'clock lab and all that stuff. Right. So I chose that, and funny enough, I finished. It was, I think, right my senior year in college that I got discovered by an agent. Like, I had this guy in Arizona that was recommended. I think, it might have been by my sister or someone else. I can't remember. It's like, this guy know this agent and he can help you. So a guy reached out, saw my videos, saw me playing. It's like, I like you a lot. I have a deal for you in Greece. But I had to go there in December, I think early May. It was something like that, right? But then that would cut into I had to graduate. But they wanted me there early. Again, it's like, I got to graduate. I didn't understand the environment. Knowing what I know now, that's left and gone, right? But he says, I have a deal from Olympiacos. I'm telling you, it's the best club, right? And I wouldn't go. I didn't, because I had to finish. And so by the time I was done, it's like, well, that deal is gone. They needed someone. They wanted you to come in and try out. I think early May. So they know if they want to sign you for the next year. Now that I didn't come, now it's June. I'm going over. So they found another club, right? It was a smaller club in the 2nd division. And it's like, you still have opportunity at this club. So, we'll take you there instead, right? And that's that was the story. I went there, loved it, played for this team over there for a while. And injuries cut my career short. I played 35 years over there, and even that last 2 years was on and off injuries. So I basically decided to give up. Now the education part is coming. I'm like, man, I'm 24, 25. I'm sitting there going, shoot, I don't know that I can keep doing this. I'm having a lot of injuries. And then you look back and your buddies are all like, they're working their jobs here, they're buying their first homes, and so now your mind is playing games on you, right? And I'm like, shoot. I don't think there's going to be a thing anymore, and so therefore, let me just go back home and start catching up, on my next career. So now the radiology comes back. I'm like, now what am I going to do when I go back? I'm like, I'm going to go to medical school. So I get back, I go to Mason. I'm like, yep, I want to sign up to go to pre-med. So I'm going through all that stuff. What do you want to do, radiologist? And the lady looks at my transcript and so like, oh, by the way, you have to do... there are a lot of these pre-med stuff. Before you even get medical, you have to finish taking some of these classes, biology and all that stuff that I didn't care for because I'm doing business, so I skipped that. But now I want to go to medical, I have to do my biology, chemistry and all that. So I'm like, the prereqs. So I'm like, cool. I'm like, so I have to take those classes now before I can even get in pre-med next year. She's like, okay, no problem. So then he's like, okay, what do you want to do? Now I want to go pre-med and all that stuff. So I look at it all, I'm like, radiology. So they give me all this list of things. You have the radiology, surgeon, all this stuff. The different medical stuff. And radiology is all I wanted to do. I'm not even considering anything else. But I looked at it, Eric, and it was going to take about 15 to 17 years. I have to finish pre-med. I have to finish these classes. That's one. And then get into pre-med, right? Do all that. Then you're medical school. Then, so that's 4 years right there. And then when you look at radiology, it's like one of those that takes you longer because of the specializations. Then after you do your residency, then you do your specialization, all this stuff. When I did all that math, it was 15 years. Now, mind you, I'm like, exactly, right? I'm like 25 at the time. I'm sitting there going, so you're telling me I'm going to have to sacrifice 15 years of, at the time, the best part of my life? I'm like 25, 30, I'm still kind of like, exploring, being, so I'm like, yeah, I guess that part of badass is not going to happen. I got to figure out a different way to be a badass.
You got to pivot.
I have to pivot, right? And that was another major inflection point. I'm like, oh, I can do this. And these are the reasons, right? And I think at the time, I don't regret it. Better now as you get older, you get wiser, right? It's why I remember when I was growing up, every time I would argue with like someone older, or my aunt, or my mom or my grandma, and they would always tell me, you will see when you get here. That was always what they used to tell me. When you get here, you see, right? And basically, you get wiser, you understand, right?
It'll make sense.
Right.
Later.
And at the time, I made all these decisions that sometimes I look back, I'm like, man, I'm not going to take dumb decision. You're a dumb teenager, you didn't do the things, and maybe you have chosen to go there instead, right? All that stuff. And that was the same thing, right? If I had done certain classes, maybe I still do radiology because it might have cut out 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And maybe now you're looking at maybe 10 years. I'm like, maybe that's possible. I'll be 35, not bad, starting a career. So a decision again, and mind you, I'd lived a life playing, being in Europe, playing soccer. That's my job. You get up, you go work for 2 hours. So I'm used to having a lot of free time. I work hard for 2-3 hours, and then I had the rest of the day, and I was in Greece, beautiful place. I'll go to the beach, go relax. So it's looking at that going, oh, I want to keep living the life, balanced life. I'll go to work and all, but I'm not trying to do that for 15 years in the medical school. You're not living a life. You're basically
you're
grinding, right? And I decided I didn't want to do that, right? I've seen what life can be, and so then I had to pivot and figure something else out, right? And I think I knew I always wanted to do soccer. After that, I'm like, I'll do some soccer, but now I got to get a job, pay bills, and all that stuff, right? And so I called the recruiter right after college. Wanted to recruit me to go to for some companies. I did one college, and I chose to go to. So I came back, and I still had the number. So I'm like, oh, I'm back and all that. And so she's gonna look, and then I had a couple of buddies who were working for consulting companies, and they needed help, right? That was back in the day where, anyone would just hire anyone and they'll train you to do it. I did business and a little bit of finance in college, so I was like, this consulting company. Then there's someone, I'm like, it's a job, right? I'll take it. So it's North American Management. I worked for them in Arlington for a while. And then I started getting into soccer because I'm back connected to my buddies and people that I knew that are in that space. So then I'll be working and then coaching on the side, training, making extra money. So, I did that for a while doing both, but I kept increasing the soccer side, right? Then got a job, transitioned I did a lot of things. Worked, again, a guy that's playing Europe, I'm back, I'm trying to find myself, North American Management. Then I'm like, oh, man, this office stuff's not for me. 9 to 5, I'm like, so I'm going to real estate. I'm like, oh, you could make a living from real estate. So I did that. I'm like, oh, let me add. And now I'm thinking, okay, making money, right? So real estate. Then I also got a job as I became a loan officer, right? But you can't conflict of interest, can't do. So I had to basically figure out what deals I'm doing as just real estate. I couldn't be the realtor and also trying to get a mortgage, right? And then setting deals. So it's funny, you learn how to operate in these spaces. So I'm like, oh, if I had a deal that was both, I'm calling my buddy who's, and then you and I will work something out. I'm giving you this part of my deal and let's do 60-40, right? And then that's how I avoided a conflict of interest. So again, that's, these are things that sometimes you think back, I have kids and I'm talking to my advisor, I'm like, experiences and the environments you grow up, right? Not just a single environment. You can actually combine different things that you take from both. And like being from Ghana, having lived there, being in a boarding school, think about it, from 9 to 15 years. I'm talking about 9-year-old to 15 years old. When you talk about boarding school here in the US, most people look at boarding school as there's two ways. Either for bad kids, so you go to military school, right? Or it's the super wealthy that they put them. You're talking about this, the New England, these
Exeter,
these type of schools, like most especially and all that stuff. So that's what most people look at boarding school. I'm sitting there going, no, man,
Yeah.
that's not boarding school in Africa. I'm
Yeah.
like, I was not in the so like you go to boarding. It was a part of the system,
Yeah.
and you went to boarding school, right?
Yeah.
And you are independent.
Yeah.
Like you're on your own. You get visited,
Yeah.
you know, every now and then. You know, like on the weekends, we would sit on the wall and just you. And it's not like you had cell phones.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get a visitor, you didn't know. Like you'll be a surprise. Someone like, oh, your mom is like, you didn't expect.
Yeah.
You're just every weekend. You are just.
Yeah.
You know, you dress nicely because your family, you know, like you grew up those places where the parent like that, they expect discipline. You have to look neat and all that. So on the weekend, you dress up because you never know if you get a visitor.
Yeah.
You go for a month without getting a visitor, but every weekend you're ready,
just
hanging
in
out
case.
just in case, right? And so I learned how to grow up, right? I learned how to be efficient. I learned how to be creative. I learned how to, right? So again, something like this, like I figured I learned how to work around things, right? Be industrious, be you know, and survive. It's basically about survival skills, right? So that's what happened. Obviously, radiologist gone. I do that, and then slowly I transitioned. You know, did that a little bit. I'm like, oh, it's not for me. Then I always keep looking, trying to get better. And then I finally worked for Freddie Mac. You know, when there's corporate 5 years. At the time, I decided, okay, I'm in a relationship. You know, my wife now, you know, moved back here with me. And you know, you're starting a family and all that, so I got to get something to do, you know. And actually happened when I had to make that pivot when during the 2008 financial crisis, you know, and all that. So I'm like, so you know, now all of a sudden, no one is buying houses, no one, right? So now I'm looking for another job, and then I go work for my buddy. He owned an electrical company, you know, and him and his brother. So I don't have a job, no one's buying real estate, I have to pivot. Like, I had to get up 4 in the morning. And what they did, they wired houses. So they'll work with the big contractors, you know, who have these buildings. So, you know, for instance, the house, you wired when it's just a skeleton, right? They burn it before they come and put a... And so I get this job in October. Okay, well, that's nice. But December, January, we're working in. So you go into these houses in the middle of the winter, and the cold gets cut in because it's open, but you have these walls, and you have to be wiring, drilling, pulling stuff. Man, like, I really do believe, again, that's why your environment matters, right? There are people who are able to do certain things that other people will not be able to do. You know what I mean? I mean, I look at my kids now, and sometimes, like, some of the things that I had to do, I went through. You know, it's funny, my wife was telling my daughter the other day, because, you know, they complain about little things, and you can't help but remind them of how you grew up. My wife was like, when I grew up, when I was 7 years old, or no, 8 years old, I would have to take 3 buses, public transportation to go to school, right? I'll leave the house, and I'll walk. I knew the bus station, and I remember my daughter looking at me, what is she talking about? Like, you know, they can't even comprehend. What do you mean, like, you went and took public
no Uber?
Yeah, there's no Uber, right? Or you couldn't just walk to school, or there was no school buses like that. Yeah, there's no school buses.
No carpool?
The idea of school bus, it's an American thing. They're yellow buses. And the rest of the world, you know, okay, maybe you go to some of the Western parts of the, you know, West, you know, Europe, some of these things. But like Mediterranean, like a lot of the world, there is no such a thing as a yellow bus. School bus will come to the junction, and you just have to show up, and it picks you up and it drops you up. No, you walk to school. You found a bus. It's, you know, you took public transportation. Your parents gave you whatever currency, a dollar, and it's like they knew that it's going to cost 20 cents from here, from Branch Avenue to, you know, Sutherland, and then from there you knew where the bus station is, and you take the other one, right? And the dollar, they knew a dollar was going to take, so that's how you lived, right? And so I was able to, I think, again, I really give a lot of credit to being grown up in a boarding school, being around the Army people, right? The discipline, it's like you just...
That
you keep moving, it shapes you, right? So I'm like, oh, there's a guy, college degree, right? Have had a pretty good life. I've grown up, and now I'm pulling wires. Like, I am getting in construction cars. I'm getting in, like, you know, I had to drive, or, you know, the van will pick me up, you know, like electric, you know, pick me up, and I am, you know, had my tool belt and all that, right? You know, like, you know what I'm saying, Derek? It's like,
you're getting your hands
college
dirty.
degree, you get your hands dirty, but it wasn't, you did what you had to do, right? And it's just the way you grew up, right? So I did that for like 8 months, and I remember the whole time I was in, it was hard, right? I remember I'd gotten jobs at FedEx. I just, you know, I'm like, things that remind you of, I never want to be back here again. I got to keep moving forward. So around the time, I'll come home and I'll apply to like 10 jobs every day.
Yeah.
The best part of the job, you know what the best part of doing all that was? In between jobs. Like if we're in Alexandria, we had to drive all the way to, let's say, Baltimore for a job.
Yeah.
In between, just so I can sleep.
Yeah.
In the
You
bed, right?
you could rest and recover.
I could rest and recover.
Yeah.
But also in high school,
Yeah.
I guess I've never shied away from hard jobs and manual jobs. Like, you know, I like, you know, I like physical stuff. I like doing stuff. I've never been an office type guy anyways, and I could do it. You know, I worked in the office for a while, but even in high school, I worked at a moving company for 3 years. And even through college, when I come home from summer, you know, all my buddies at the time, you know, you finish high school jobs, you know, these kids, I grew up, you know, suburban America, they lifeguards, working at the golf course, working at Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, like those places. And I'm like, I did it a couple of times and it was Target. I was going to do a Target and I'm like, in the retail side. It's not a hard job, but it's hard in the sense that, you know, it's like those people that are annoying you, like people come in, they try stuff and they're like, you have to go in the back, go find, and then where does it go? Like, you have to go put them back. Like, I was doing retail, I'm like, oh, I hate this.
It's
like,
tedious.
Yeah, so I went and did a harder job. Like, I enjoyed working for a moving company, like lifting boxes, driving, you know, some of the trucks, like stuff like that. That was just me, right? And again, my buddies, like, I remember there was 5 of us. We all went to security storage, and it was one of our buddies' dad knew them, like, oh, you guys, these kids want a summer job. I'll call my buddy in this company. I think there was 5 to 6 of us, only 2 of us survived. We did run the training. The rest of them, nope, I'm going back to Abercrombie. So it's just me and this other guy. We worked there and another guy actually joined. We worked there through high school every summer and then college. That was our summer job, right? So I'm used to, you know, just have to do what you do. So I did this and I applied for different jobs. And then when I got a job, I told my buddy, man, I found another job. And, you know, it's a friend. He was helping me out at the time. So then worked for Freddie for a while. And then I quit. I remember the year I decided I'm going to quit and go soccer full time. And it was just going to be a soccer director, right? And there was none of this agent stuff, intermediary, you know. And it was just, I'm going to coach. And a week after my daughter was born, I said to my wife, I'm quitting my job. So can you imagine? I'm like, I'm quitting my corporate job with benefits and all that stuff, and I'm going to go into soccer, right? And I remember we had the conversation. I'm like, it's going to be rough the first year because I have to work my way, right? So yeah, I quit. That was 2013. That's when I quit and did, you know, corporate and decided to focus on soccer full time.
That's when you took the dive.
And you don't know what you're getting into, right? And it's just, I kind of knew that's what I wanted, the space I wanted to be in. You know.
Nah, and I love your story, man, because in a sense, you know, all of it, like you went back to being in the boarding school, right? The military base. Every part of your life, everything that you're exposed to, you were literally picking up skills and just building, you know, this character that you have, which, you know, so it explains a lot now that I have a better understanding of you, of who you are and the things that help to shape you. You know what I mean? So talk to us about how a lot of your experiences, you know, you talked about your first daughter being born, how a lot of these experiences, as you sort of figured things out, you know, on the personal level, on the professional level, but now as a parent, how did all these experiences shape you? You just talked about how your wife, you know, talked to your daughter about taking the bus when she was 7. But how did all these experiences, you know, being born in the Czech Republic, going back to Ghana, then coming to America, how did all this help to shape you, your experiences in America, your experiences back in Ghana as a parent?
Well, I think all those environments, the first thing is adjustment. I mean, I can easily adjust to anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I give an example. You know, I remember during the financial crisis in '98, I had a buddy, Zach. You know, he's doing very well, a mechanic and all that stuff. Now, I remember we went to high school together. He knew, talk about people that knew what they're good at and what they want to get into. Like right out of high school, he knew he wasn't that guy. He wasn't going to be at college. You know, he was not, you know, studious like that, right? Took his GED and he immediately started working for dealerships, learning how to be a mechanic and all that. And Zach is from Afghanistan, right? And like we were high school that we played soccer and all that stuff. I remember during the '98 crisis, Zach, you know, as he did well as a mechanic, you know, to this day I take my cars to him in Alexandria, and then all of a sudden he opened a restaurant and he's buying houses, you know, he's doing well. and he loses almost everything.
Yeah.
Right. And during the crisis, he had to make a decision, and he knew the mechanic. He was willing to walk away from the restaurant, the houses, all these other investments. But that mechanic shop, he's keeping that. For him to be able to keep it, he had to make those decisions. Right. To let everything go. Right. Again, that's the love, and that's the thing that he enjoys doing, and that's the thing that brought him all those other things anyways. So he's going back to square one. I remember I had a conversation with him, and I'll never forget this, Derek, and two instances where I've had this type of conversations and like different times, right, and different people, different environment. He said to me, he's like, Rado, remember I came from Afghanistan, war-torn. I came with nothing. I had nothing, and I started this. Now, because I was asking him, like, now you're talking to me about losing all this. He's like, Rado, I came with nothing. I can rebuild it. Right? You know, it was so funny there because he was talking, he was very unemotionally attached to it. It was like,
very matter of fact.
Very matter of fact. It's like, I came here with nothing. Like, you think I'm going to sit there crying? It's like, nope, I still have I'm going to start over. Perspective, right? I had nothing. So I lost, whatever. I'm still here. I'm still in the U.S. I still have a mechanic shop, all that stuff, right? And the same thing, around the same time, I think I go back to Greece, and I'm talking to a buddy of mine, you know, and mind you, this U.S., we felt it not as bad, and especially, that's why I said this area is almost like a bubble, right? You leave this area, and people felt it, like even in the United States and Europe, right? And the guy said to me in Greece, he says, Rado, you know, for us, life is always simple. We have good weather, we have the beach, you know, things are cheap. And we get up, he said, we work to live. You guys, like, and he's like, you know, why, you know, nobody, because again, and he was referencing the fact that people were committing suicide in the U.S. People were killing them. You know what I'm saying? Like, people couldn't deal with, like, you know, like all this stuff. People have lost stuff. Oh my God, things are challenging. And I'm not making light of it, but that's the only reason, because most people like that, they've never had to deal with difficult situations. You know, let's face it, that's what it is, right? I mean, unfortunately, I know then there are parts where obviously clinical stuff, right? Depression's a real thing, right? And all that stuff. But generally, people that have dealt with difficult situations before easily adjust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, in US, every time the news, this person, you know, they lost their house, so they committed suicide. And the guy says to me, it's like, you know the difference? Over here, it's like over there, everyone wants to get up and become the next Mark Zuckerberg, and you guys are just competing and like all this stuff and material wealth, and it's like over here, no, simple. We have the beach and all that stuff. So he says that to me, and then I'm looking at what Zach says to me too. You know what I mean? And again, it comes to your environment. You asking me that, sir, and that's why I said it's all about adjustments, right? So even my kids now, it's how I raised them, right? I mean, it's not like you get up and you consciously decide, oh, this, I have to do this. No, because it's already sort of deep ingrained in you, right? You know, it's natural. So it helps me the way I do with my kids, the way I shape them. When they go through certain things, the way I talk to them about dealing with it, right? It's finding that balance, knowing the environment they're growing up in, knowing how their friends and other people deal with certain situations, which it can't help but that's what is that influence, right? They hang out with all these other people, and so they hear their stories, and sometimes being kids, they think that's how it should be, right? I remember, you know, there are times when my kid will want something, so I'm like, no, you can't have it. Well, this so and so has it. I'm like, well, this is the Pletka household, and that's their household. And I'll explain to her why you can't have it, and maybe their parents have decided they'll get that for this person, and that's okay. That's their decision. But in this house, this how we're going to do certain things, and these are the reasons, right? We also made the conscious decision, you know, growing up, that we don't lie to the kids. Like, you know, the world we live in now, right? It's a tough world in many ways, right? Even parenting is one of the hardest things. I think it's, if not the hardest, one of the hardest, right? Because you're trying to shape the kid a certain way, but the moment they leave the house, there's so many other influences.
Absolutely.
More influences than in the business. Just me and my wife. They're friends, friends and their families. And so there's more influences. So it's that balance, right? And so I remember the decision was, we are not going to talk about, like, if the kid asks a question, I'd rather they hear from us, right? But you know, kids have certain questions that, like, they're like, oh man, how do you explain to them, right? It's too much for, like, certain things that are like, I wish I don't have to, but I'm like, they're gonna find anyways. Now they're like, there are 4-year-olds who have cell phones. Like
they can Google it.
they can Google, and I don't want my daughter to go find out from somewhere which might end up even being the wrong answer. So we tell them, right, and it's and there's something personal that I'll bring. Recently, and I'm bringing that because I had to battle. I had a battle with cancer, and it's all I'm clear now. Everything is good, right? But I remember when it first I got this, they discovered it early and all that stuff. That's why I'm very appreciative of having the second crack at continuing my life because of But I remember we had to tell the kids. My kids, they're first, and I think naturally so, right? They're only, they're 8 and 11. They know stuff, right? And they hear stuff. Their idea of when they hear of the word cancer, they associate with that, right? And so now their dad, now how do you explain to her? I remember my wife telling me, hey, this is the association. So she's strong. And I said, we're gonna face it. We're just gonna talk. But there's a quote in Greece, not a quote, a buddy on it says, Graham, they're like, say enough without saying too much, right? So that was the approach we took them. We're going to always tell them the honest truth, but we'll say it in a way. So we basically just explain to them what's going on, right? But, it was discovered, so I'm going to be fine. So they don't connect it to that, but we're also going to keep things normal. So that's the approach we've always taken to them, right? And by the way, if there's a tough situation, we have to accept it for what it is. It's not about the situation, but how you react to it. Right. That's the way we are putting it.
Absolutely.
How you react, how you deal with adversity. Like, you get down, you got to get back up. And there's a reason, right? And so that's sort of the approach. And again, it's shaped my life, but I'm also very easygoing. Like, nothing is that important. You know what I mean? Like, so I take that approach too. And the kids, like, it's actually enjoyed. I play these games, so I'm like, and I want them to see me act those ways.
Absolutely.
That way, react to certain things, right? And this was something major. I felt like, and my wife, we both felt like how I reacted to it, like how they saw me deal with it, right? It's how I want life to be. I remember my surgery was on April 15th, and it was the spring break, right? And this was a 9-hour surgery. Spring break that same week. Before it, we knew that we had planned before this whole thing was discovered, and we had planned spring break, going to do something. The kids are used to doing stuff for spring break. Remember, my wife and I spoke, and we're like, we're going to, I remember saying to her, I still want them to have a spring break. I don't want this to be like that thing where it's like, it's changed. They are nope, everything is going to be normal. I had my surgery the Tuesday, I think it was the 15th. The doctor was like, hey, it's a major surgery. You can stay here as long, or if you want to go home and prefer to be home. And it's, man, the next day, I was gone. I left. The next morning, I'm like, I'm gone. I'm like, I want to go home. I want to keep things normal. I checked in on Monday. I don't want to be away from the kids because then, I'm like, I want them to see that, hey, this thing happened, battled, we move on, we keep. So I came home and we booked a place in Old Town. Obviously, I couldn't go somewhere far. I wanted to be close if something, happened. I just had a major surgery. So we went and stayed in Old Town. I was in there for a couple of days so the kids can have. And I was out there walking with them. Like, we're doing stuff, So that's, the approach I've taken with them because I think they have to see this. In my mind, the world is only getting harder, right? And sometimes I say this and someone will tell me, but it's their world now, they'll figure it out. It's almost like you, as parents, you can't help but sit there. You're trying to protect your kids. You're trying to be like, oh my God, how are they going to deal with this new world? AI, there's no more jobs. And people are like, is there? Just like our parents, like grandparents, like they had life different. And they're like, what kind of music are these? What kind of, the same thing. It's our world. We'll figure it out. And it's their world. We'll figure it out. But I want them to see me like, I want them to learn growing up to see how you deal with things, right? We don't cry about it. Sometimes, you feel sorry about it, but then at some point you have to move on. You got to keep going. So,
And I think the way you and your wife responded, to your recovery, I think is important for them, right? You went on the spring break trip because you didn't want that to be like the lasting memory that they have of spring break. It's like, so I think that's really cool.
And remember, we had also told them that, hey, I'm having this surgery because, it's cancer, but it's nothing like, I had to show them that, remember I told you, I was going to be fine. It's worse when all of a sudden, if I was still at the hospital, I was laying there literally, someone said this, sometime I took up and it's, it's made me a huge believer in team sports. Sports in general, because you deal with adversity, deal with learning how to deal with other people, right? Other people, decisions they make affect you. Because you're on the soccer field, right? It's I'm making this run, you're not passing the ball, I'm getting myself fit, you're not fit, and therefore, like, when we go on the team, we're a team. That means all 11 of us or 18 have to be on the same page. Absolutely. You and I know that doesn't happen. It's just like even in professional world, Ronaldo is known to be like takes care of himself better, right? And he's a hard worker, but you have other teammates that don't take it the center, but I still have to be on the field with you. I got to learn how to work with you, knowing that we have different mentalities, right? There's never going to be 11 Ronaldos on the field, right? So those type of things, and that really also, like, my environment in sports, it's probably the two things that have shaped me the most, right? And they both, if you look at it, both had to deal with adjustment all the time, right? Czech Republic, Ghana, not being with my family, not knowing my family. I've lived a life where I'm constantly adjusting. Right, you meet your biological mom for the first time at 15, and 3 years later you're off to college. So you really didn't get to know. Half the time I had my activities, school, soccer, and I never really spent time. That right. I was in the boarding school 9 to 5. Right. It's something that my wife and I talked about, and now that I have kids, I couldn't imagine sending my kids away. Right. But it's in the fabric of most South Americans and Africans, and generally because it's the idea that they have to do what they have to do. You look at these stories, Africa, South America, there are situations where a dad from South America, Mexico, wherever is here, and the family is back home, and they're here for 20 years, and they work so they can send money home. You're away from your family for 20 years. Having kids, and sometimes I don't know how that I could, I'm like, but it gives you a good perspective, like, man, the way people have to, like, what other people have to deal with, right? And too often people don't take the time to sit back, and right, we're easy to complain, right? It's so easy to complain. It's so easy to like, this and that. I'm like, man, you have no idea. Somebody always has the worst, right? And I always believe that you're always in the middle. Even the wealthiest guy, there's somebody wealthier than them. And then there's a whole lot of people less, the happiest guy, there's always someone happy and someone sad, right? And it's finding that balance, right? I was talking to my brother the other day, and he said, he's like, he always lived by the bell curve, right? And you talk to some people, I'm like, yep, the middle right there, and then there's this side, and sometimes people tend to, something might get pulled too far to the other side and all that stuff. And it's about finding the balance that when you go too far here, can you bring yourself back? Same thing, when you're going too far, right? And the best example recently was by a guy, played soccer at the same school, and, he said to me, Rado, I would have been an amazing professional player. But when you look at a bell curve, I couldn't ever bring myself back to the middle. Like, you look at Kobe Bryant, like the greatest players, like, he's like, certain things piss me off or makes me so angry that it brings me back here. And it's like, I was a terrible teammate, right? Because I could never get over the hump and be like, you know what, it's okay. Like, but I was always mad. Like, and then there's this side where it's almost like you're so good that you're like, this is like too emotional, right? And you just don't know how to deal with things, right? And then this is like you're going the other side, like you're emotionless. Like it's, again, when you look at too extreme, and you look at like the Kobe Bryants and the Jordans, like Jordan was known to like this side pisses me off, like his teammates, and this side is too extreme where like it's like the Kobe thing where you alienate, right? But he's like, the best side, you're always able to bring yourself back in the middle, right? It's kind of like you always bring it, and that's part of it, right? And you look at it, those are so, again, those environment and sports for me, I feel like it's so complementary, right? Learn how to adjust. Like, I'm the kid that you bench me, okay, what do I got to do to get back, up there? Like, I wouldn't just take it and sit there and accept it. You always got to, and it's living it sometimes is hard, right? Because in that moment, these are tough situations in the boarding school. I mean, Derek, in the boarding school, for us to go to the bathroom, when I first went there, you had to go. We didn't have a dedicated toilet. It was a field. It was a new school, and it was outside the capital. It was like, so you had to go and do your business, find a spot, and it's in the sun. So, it always descended. Like, not too much information, but it's real. Like, you went to school
as a 9-year-old.
And then we built. Then all of a sudden they built the toilet, dedicated toilet. I remember it was a latrine. I don't know if you know what a latrine is, right? And I remember it's looking back, and I'm still connected to some of my buddies that went to school,
man.
and we look back and
man.
we laugh about it, but we enjoy talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we've lived, I've seen
man.
stuff, Derek. I was in a boarding school where people died from malnutrition.
Yeah.
Right? And I was 9-year-old and I was able to adjust and survive through there, right? We used to go, you know, like the latrine actually is a funny story. We'll be in the dorm and someone would be like, hey, you want to go with me? I'm like, where you going? I'm going to the typewriter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the typewriter is the fact that the latrine is a hole, like a bunch of holes.
Yeah.
So you go and they put like, you know, the carpenters built this wooden thing on top. So, you know, again, without too much information, and I have to say because I think it's fun. It's imagine you're squatting right there, I'm squatting right there, another. So it's like the idea that the drops of, you know, people, and it's like you hear the noise, boom, boom, you know, so it's a typewriter, right? It's like I'm going to a typewriter room, right? And it's just, it's stuff like that, right? So
you make fun of or make the most
like,
of what it is, or make light of it.
You make light of it, right?
Man.
Living it.
Yeah.
When you're living it, it wasn't fun, right? But if to be able to live
live
some hardship, live through it, come out of it on the other end, when you look back, I think that's some of the best feelings.
Yeah, man.
Because you look at it, man, I went through it, right?
That's what shapes you.
That's what shapes you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sitting there going, I can count, if I was talking to 10 people over here, I'll tell you 10 out of 10 they would know that I've been able to live that, right? And not because I am better than them. That was just my life. That was just
your reality.
That was my reality, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, sometimes I talk to people and they're like, oh, look at these wealthy kids. Like, they're so entitled. I'm like, dude, the kid was just born. They didn't pick who they were, you know, with their parents. Imagine a kid living in Great Falls and all this stuff. Some of these what's like California, whatever, right? Yeah. They were born, they didn't know any better. They left the hospital in a limousine, or like this amazing car, and they went to this, you know, 50,000 square foot house. That's how they grew up. They don't know any better. And me pointing to those 10 people that if I said this to, I'm like, there's no way you would have been able to live what I lived through. Put me in their shoes. It's possible if somebody else was in my shoes and I was sitting there, standing around the 10, and they'd be like, yep. I could be one of those, but that's because I grew up in a way where the same thing with my daughter, where my daughter's looking at my wife going, what are you talking about? You gotta take 3 buses and, you know, all that stuff, right? And so again, I happen to live through it, right? So it's not a dig or it's nothing, you know, against, they know they have a different path, right? I mean, it's like, they'll look at you going, what? That's how you went to the bathroom? They don't know any better, right? But you couldn't also take those people and tell them to do it now. You would have to have grown up in that right?
situation.
And that's why my biggest thing is the happiest people are those people in the villages and all that. Like, they have no, you know, they don't know any better, quote unquote better. You know, all they know is a simple life, right? And they eat better than you and I, you know, Derek. I mean, for us to eat better, we got to buy a labeled organic. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I think we're like, what do you mean organic? Like, for me to eat the right food, it's actually out of my reach. You know what I mean? Like,
theoretically, you have to go out of your way.
Yeah, I have to go out of my way. I have to spend more.
You have to make an effort.
I have to spend more because it's better food for me. You know, like, and I'm like, these people. The
concept is crazy.
The concept of, if you go to Africa or like South America, like organic food, they're like, what do you mean organic? Like, it's supposed to be the natural. Like, they don't call it, like, they don't have another name for it. It's food and it's natural. You know what I mean? So it's I like going back to Africa. You know, I like going to like South America. Recently, I traveled with the State Department to Portugal, the Azores. You know, it's like those, I think, 9 islands, 7 or 9 islands. I guess if you include Ronaldo's island, you know, it's 9 of them, and it's in the middle of the North Atlantic, right? So in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean,
this is like Cape Verde.
In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, it is so close. It's actually closer here to U.S. It's a 4.5 hour to 5 hour flight from Boston Logan and JFK, right? To go there. It's in a way a short trip, right? It's closer to fly to U.S. than flying the Azores to mainland. You know, Portugal is like almost 2 hour flight, so almost halfway to U.S. And then if you go to other parts of Portugal and Europe, right? And the Azores they're all like farmers, right? Man, amazing food. And it's like, you go to this island and it's in Europe. It's part of Portugal. And yet it feels like you're in the Caribbean. Because, you know, you fly from here, you know, I flew to Lisbon, European, and then it's like, Then you fly the Azores, and it's almost like you're in the developing world. You know, like
Yeah.
Azores are nice. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about a European town that looks like you're somewhere in the Caribbean. It's
Yeah.
like somewhere in the Bahamas. Like,
Yeah,
you know, I'm not talking about was that resort in the Bahamas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bahamas. I'm
Yeah.
like, and I love that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in Europe. I feel like I'm in
Yeah.
the Bahamas. You
Yeah.
know, like even the colors
Yeah.
of the buildings.
Yeah.
Literally, you feel like that,
Yeah.
right? And amazing people,
Yeah.
happy, and they're all farmers mentality. Like, so I learned something. A lot of the Azores, when you go to Fresno, I don't know. The Fresno is pro. It's I think the what was the word to use? They most I think 80% of produce in the farms like comes from California. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's not what I think. You know, you think of Iowa or the
Yeah.
side with corn, but Fresno in California, 80% of produce and all that stuff. I think it's some ridiculous number. 70 or 80% comes from this
from
this
the
region.
region,
Fresno is a farm.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's
a
farm
farming
country,
community.
and a lot of Azorians.
Yeah.
That's where they live.
Yeah.
So these Portuguese,
Yeah.
like, so a lot of people from Fresno, and then they also live in the Boston area.
Yeah.
So it's an interest.
Yeah.
I just learned that last year, right?
They
And
live on both coasts.
you know, and talking about soccer, right? It's you know, I remember when I was over there, I had to go to a school, and this trip by the State Department, it was called sports diplomacy. So State Department always do things like this, right? And so I went with Brandy Chastain. You know, they would take like a celebrity athlete, whatever, and then you know, couple with other people. So I tried. It was me and Brandy was supposed to go with the State Department. We're there with the U.S. ambassador and all that. So we're there for a week, right? And just lived. And I remember in the school, in the class, I was talking to these students, and literally, you know, I was talking about they want us to inspire them. And I think my story was kind of like, I basically said to them, like, forget that I was born in the Czech Republic. Forget that I'm just think about it this way. I'm this quote unquote this this African kid. There was a time in my life when I was just this African kid running around, you know, in Africa, like you know, just from Africa, whatever, you know. And I'm here with the U.S. ambassador.
Yeah.
You know, and Brandy Chastain.
Yeah.
I'm traveling. The State Department is putting a 4-star hotel, like flew me here and all that stuff. And the whole thing was, you know, people have the tendency to be in this part where I'm like, oh, I'm this kid from El Salvador. I'm this, like, you know, like, and then you look at, I'm like, well, how come that kid from that ghetto or from the, like, they made it? Like, you know, like the whole idea is that your environment, your current environment should not define you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these kids, it's funny, in the Azores, sometimes it's almost like, even you can tell that people in the mainland Portugal, they look at them as kind of like, the mainland is kind of like, hey, look, we're like, you know, better than these, you know, these farmers and all that stuff, right? And it's weird because I'm like, the Portuguese, like, you know, they have Portuguese farm. They're in the EU, they just happen to live in this island, in this farm, and like, and going to the mainland is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like there are people in the Azores, like, who live there and they've never gone to the mainland.
Yeah.
And it's only a 2-hour flight. They've never flown.
Yeah.
You know, similar, like people living in, there are people in US, there are people somewhere go down 60 somewhere in Virginia and they don't have a passport, but you live in the US, you know. And so the whole inspiration, I was basically telling them, look at me, I'm with this, you know, you get it, like, there was a time I was a 6, 7-year-old, 9-year-old African kid in Africa, in Ghana, right? Who would have thought, fast forward all these decades, I'm traveling with, in quote unquote, the greatest country in the world, right? And I'm with the ambassador, rubbing shoulders with the ambassador, having dinner, being in the same car, come here telling the story was, here I am, and the sports, what sports has done for me. The sports, I met my wife through the sports. I've traveled the world because of the sports. I got education, good college education, on scholarship because of the sport. You know what I mean? And so for me, a lot of these conversations that I have with people always revolves around that environment and sports. I'm like, sports is so good for you in many ways, right? And for me, because, I mean, I'm always going to be biased to it because I think I'm where I am because of the sports. You know what I mean? Like traveling the world, seeing the world, my network, you know, the kind of people I know, you know, around the world. Then, you know, it's almost like literally, Derek, I'm not kidding, outside of being able to reach, maybe even the Pope I might be, but like, this sports has gotten me 6 degrees of separation from so many important people. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I want to go to the Vatican,
Yeah.
I have a couple of contacts in Italy.
Yeah.
Then people that are like high ups that I could be like, I could make some calls,
Yeah.
and they can arrange.
I'm
That's,
sure you can.
That's where I am now,
yeah.
right? And again, it's connected to the sport,
Yeah.
right? And so I tell people like financially, I'm not like a wealthy person, but I have people capital.
Yeah. No, so I love that, man. And I think for you, knowing you and also now hearing your story, right, and getting a more comprehensive understanding of your story, you touched on this earlier, the importance of sports, right? And I think sports, one of the things I learned, I took this sports counseling certification program, and one of the things I walked away from that with is they said that sports doesn't build character, sports just teaches you who you are, right? And what they mean by that is like, who are you? Like when you play a sport, especially a team sport, it's early in the game and you're winning by 2-0, you know what I mean? It's exactly what you talked about with Kobe and Jordan. How do you stay even keel instead of getting over indexing one way or the other, right? So how do you respond when you're doing well? How do you respond when you're not doing well or when the team isn't doing well? You know what I mean? So who are you in all these different situations? And I think you're a perfect testament to that, to reflect how sports has been a part of your life, but it's also just part of your your personality, your temperament, you know what I mean? Like you still embody a lot of that and the friendships that you've gained over time. And knowing you, I know, like you said, you can make some phone calls, and I believe that because I know how much people love you, how people are enamored with you, and it's because of the person that you are. So just talk to me really, really briefly, like who are some of those people that, along the way, your journey in life, and not just through sports, but just in life in general, who are just pivotal. We talked about your aunt earlier, who you stayed with initially, your mom's middle sister. But who are some of these other folks that that were just, you ran into them at the right time and they still, they imparted some knowledge or they showed you something to inspire you or to support you along the journey that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, that's good. My aunt, so my aunt is the middle sister. So my mom is the youngest, my aunt's the middle, and then she had an older one, right? So yeah, I mean, she is the one, I think she's a foundation of everything, right? I remember after high school, she lived here. Again, another story, right? She's a lady from Africa. She came over here. She got green card. You know how like people here have no idea, right? Looking at what's going on right now, right? And I am not. It's above my pay grade, right? Sometimes I see things for what they are, and I have some conversations, and you know what I'm talking about, like the whole immigration situation, the whole ICE situation, all that stuff, right? And I think what is lost in all this is, it's, how do I say this? People love their country. People, that wherever they grew up, like if they were not, people wouldn't be coming, people don't come here just because, I'm just picking up if they had something better. Yeah. If they, and there are a lot of people that I know in Ghana and other places that you could not even gift them a U.S. passport for them to come. They're like, what am I going to do? They're doing well there. They're fine.
You couldn't gift them a gold card.
You couldn't give them a gold card. Like all that stuff, right?
The gold passport.
So, and I know I digress a little bit because some of this thing touches like, and I have conversations with certain neighbors and like, again, that's why I mentioned like, people are stuck in the world they live in and how to grow up, and sometimes they don't even try to understand other people or try to see, like, put themselves, okay, like why are they coming here? Like the first question people have to ask is, they come from a better life. Yeah, they come in which is a compliment to the U.S. Yeah. It's a compliment, right, for better opportunities. Right, the things they have to do, and I only brought up because my aunt, she came here like people back home and the things they have to do to try to get a green card, like, or try to make it to this country, right? So she comes here, and some like she comes here and she is, she tells you the story of she's like a nursing assistant, whatever, like the things they have to do, like work in a hospice or like. They're doing the work that a lot of people always talk about that Americans, what the educated don't want to do, right? Absolutely. Like, wiping people's butts. This is real. I mean, I'm saying it like it is, right? The people have to do
the
this
hardest
job.
Work for the lowest pay.
The hardest work, right? They're doing it like she's done it. And it's funny, such, for me, an inspiration. Like, she started at the bottom. She worked her way all the way to become director of nursing in Maryland. Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Director of
Just start from a
nursing.
nursing assistant
Yeah,
to director of nursing.
director of
Yeah, man.
nursing, right? And she graduated, and I remember, and at some point she worked, and then she decided, you know, she wants to go back home and give back to the country, and you know, give back. And she started a school, which, you know, after I finished high school, you know, and so like I helped, you know, I remember I had a pickup truck, I shipped it, sold it so they can use the money and all that stuff. You know, I would always take trips, and every time I go there now, I'll pick a project of the school that needs to be done. And then I'll come back here and I'll send money. I'll go, okay, we need to, you know, paint the school, or we need this and all that. So I'm like, so that's what I always do when I go to Ghana. I go to the school. The school has 500 kids. I recently inherited it. You know, so she wants me to make sure I frequent it, right? But she is the, you know, the first inspiration, right? I met a guy named Darren when I first came back from Greece, and I started coaching, and I was coaching his daughter, and I remember he asked me a question, and he said, "Rado, when you do this, right? I mean, what are you trying to get out of it? What is your outcome? Like, what is that thing? You're working with kids, and what, right? And knowing me, like, you know, I haven't played in college, you know, played a little bit in Europe and all that. I'm like, oh yeah, I want every kid to become a professional player." And he looked at me, he says, "Nope. What you're doing this for is that you're trying to make sure you build such a love for the sport that you extend these kids' careers in the sport." And I'm sitting there going, in my mind, the word career has to do with being paid to do it, right? You know, I'm like, what do you mean career? It's like, if you're saying not all of them are going to play, what do you mean career? He's like, what I mean in the career in the sport, like their love for the sport, their affinity for the sport. So he's like, if any of these kids that you're working with, when they're still 40 and they're playing, they go out there after college, they have kids and they're still involved in the sport they're playing, they're going to end up coaching their kids, and they remain in the sport somehow, then you've done the job. He's like, the job isn't that the one or two are going to play professional or go play in college. The job is that you've created such a love and all the passion for the sport that, you know, you've done such a good job that they love it so much. When they walk away, it's like something that they want to continue in their life, right? So Darren and then we talk. I mean, like, man, this guy Darren, Derek, he became a mentor of mine. You know, works for does stuff with like NASA space. Like he is that one of those you hear, like, you know, you just hear of the word like, oh, some people are rocket scientists. That is that guy, right? And I learned a lot from him, partly to help me shape my mentality, right? He's a guy that also served in the army, right? I consider he's one of my badass people, right? Served in the army, super smart guy. Like, I mean, he's a guy that even sometimes he gives the White House or like the government, you know, they call him in, like when there's certain decisions, you know, there's certain important people. It's like, okay, we have to make a decision to do this. Let's call the brain trust who are around. Right? He's that kind of guy, right? Guess what? My meetings, like, he became a mentor of mine, and so like we'll try to make it a point to meet once a month for coffee, and we have no agenda, by the way. It's just, hey, we're gonna meet, catch up, and because of the way he is and knowing why I get, like, he's that guy that I just want to spend 5 minutes with once a month, and he imparts such knowledge, right? Again, we go into it, no agenda. We're just going to have coffee and conversations start up and things start. And then, you know, we just talk and things come up, right? And I would always write stuff. He would say, the guy, you know, those type of people that they would just say something. They'll make a sentence like, oh, I like that. Let me write it down, right? It's become a quote and all that.
They give you a gem.
6 a.m., Darren. I mean, Derek. 6 a.m. Let's meet for coffee. Yep. What? 6 a.m. That's when I live now, because I know I'll meet him in Chantilly. So I would have to get up around 5, Jerry and all that stuff. And I remember my wife looked around and says, what'd you get out of this stuff? I'm like, I don't even understand. Like, somehow, the way my mentality was, it's not like you're going that I'm going to walk out like, oh, I know I'm going to get a pot of gold or something like that. I just liked going and talking to him because the things that he says, I walk around like, man, coffee with Darren, like, that set me up. It's filled my, it's refueled me, right? And all that 6 a.m. By the way, he gets up at 3 or 4 a.m. Before that 6 a.m., he had swam. He tell me like 2 miles, like, you know, hits the pool, run 5 kilometers, read parts of a book. So by 6, he used to tell me, man, I've gotten so much done, you know, in my that most people would do in their whole day. And we'll meet at 6. He had done, worked out, swimming, running, read something, read part of a book. studied
Yeah.
by 6 a.m.
Yeah.
6 a.m. Then people are just getting up at like 7, 8.
Yeah.
Derek.
Yeah.
This guy has done
Mamba
so
mentality.
much. Yeah, Mamba mentality, right? So Darren was another person. You know, I mean, look, my adopted father, right? You know, we look nothing alike and all that stuff, but he he helped make my adjustment easier here, right?
Yeah.
It's like his whole idea was that he never wanted me to feel like an outsider.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, I came here, obviously I came here, half brother, half sister, they've lived here, I was only here 3 years and all that stuff, you know. And I think that goes more to the humanity side of things, right? Where I'm like, man, this guy, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember, look, these are factual stuff, and it's not to paint anyone in bad light or anything. It's just what it is, right? You know, my mom, my background had different ideas of how, you know, things should be, and I came here, and it's, I think, you know, it's, think of this story. It's kind of like the lost son is coming. Oh my God, it's a big deal for most families. It's like, oh, that's like my half son. That's my brother.
Yeah.
You know,
My older
I just
brother.
met him after 15 years.
Yeah.
Naturally, most people can. It's like, oh my God, he's so like he's fallen behind. He hasn't gotten all this stuff. So people are thinking you come in and it's like you want something out of like, oh, I got him, man. The funny thing is, I came from Africa. I've come from borders. Like I just came here and it is. I landed and I keep going.
Yeah.
I never had this animosity. I didn't even have time to think about it. Like it was never part of my, that's just my life. That was just what it. So I was born in Southern Africa. I go, okay, so there's the next level. We keep going. It's not like I'm here. Oh yeah, by the way, I haven't lived here for 15 years, so you have to make it up. You got to buy me a car. You got to know it was never. But
Quick
I think,
adjustment.
yeah, from the other side, it was kind of like, oh my God, what do we got to do to make sure to make up for lost time?
Yeah. And not to gloss over that, I think that's a really, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Especially when with a step parent.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And a lot of times that doesn't go as well as it went for you.
Well.
You know what I mean? Or you could, like you say, most of the time it doesn't go well. And so kudos to your mom and to your stepdad for intentionally and deliberately making sure that they welcomed you well and they tried to
mostly from him.
Yeah.
Like mostly, I mean, it was good, right? And I think, you know, mostly him. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm saying this. I had certain battles with my mom, right? And you gotta. It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, her birth son and then going away. I'm like, and I don't know how other people will react to it. And I think some of those battles have not been good. Right. Because I had different mentality than she did, and you know she was thinking something else. So you know, like there was this way, and that's I think from my side, I was like, dude, I just came in, I just keep moving. Like I didn't have any, you know, I'm not thinking the same way. But I think he played this, you know, like he was kind of like my go-to. It was like, oh, you know, I lean on him and all that stuff, right? Another person that shaped my life, and it was briefly, but I remember my high school coach. Joe, right? He came in, and my senior year, I was the leading. You know, I think at the time I was the leading scorer. I scored 5 goals or something, right? And I got benched in one game, right? And it was funny because the first time you benched me, I'm a high schooler, and I'm like, you know, I'm cool and all this. I'm like, oh, I remember when you read the starting lineup, I was on there. I'm like, you know, Rado isn't starting. I was like, okay, whatever. They go, they win that game. You know, I'm thinking, oh, they're going to miss me. You know, at the first one, I didn't, again, coaches make it fun. So the first one, I didn't think, oh, maybe he just wants to rest me, start somewhere else. The next game, we decided I'm not playing again. So now I'm thinking, okay. The first time I would think you're about now, like the second game. But now I'm getting my feel. I'm like, all right, whatever, you know. Like, I'm trying to be tough and all that stuff. They go and I think they tie the game. So I'm losing leverage here, right? Because I'm hoping they lose games and they'll be like, oh, man, we
need them.
The third game. So they're doing this. And so finally I'm sitting there like, I get off my high horse, like being all like kind of match and coach. I went to the coach. Like, I think it was the 4th game or 5th game. So I'm like, hey, coach, you know, why are you not playing me? And I remember, I'll never forget, he says, it took you this long to come ask me, right? And he said, because I know what to expect from you. You're not giving me where you're like, even when you're scoring, like, it's like, you're not just supposed to score, like, you're supposed to help the team, you're supposed to work hard. Like, he basically was saying, I'm not giving him enough. I'm not digging deep. I'm not playing to my potential, right? And so I looked at him going, well, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, no, it wasn't going to help you. Like, you know, I can't keep feeding you. Like, But he was like, I'm also disappointed because it took you 5 games
Yeah.
to come have that conversation with me, right? And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
Derek, I lost 5 games in my high school career, my senior year. I mean, it's a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And it wasn't until I realized, oh man, I'm running out of time. There's
Yeah.
only 4 games left.
Yeah.
And right, so after that conversation, man, I worked my butt off at practice. I showed me, and then so the next game I came in as a sub, and then after that I regained my position back. Now I hated this guy till 2 years ago. I'm talking about high school. You're talking about 20 years ago, right? Till recently, I ran into him.
Yeah.
And and then I went home and I texted him. I said, now mind you, I've had some very good coaches. I said, you are the best coach that I ever had.
Yeah.
I drove for 2 years in high school because he came in, I think, my sophomore year, right? And, right out of college. He was like, he played in college, William Maryland, and he just came and coached. So it was his first gig. And the reason why I said that to him is, again, look at everything I've been talking about, adjustment, how I've lived, where I came from, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I sat down, I'm like, man, I didn't know that, but that shaped my mentality, right? And it goes back to me coming here. Derek, we used to in Africa, and you probably understand this, people in the Caribbean, they're like, we'll stay up all night studying, and you put your feet in water in the bucket because you got to stay up and study, right? And it's like we used to call we pull all-nighters the day before. Sometimes we start a week before an exam, a major exam, because these exams in Africa are major, like British school system, right? A levels, O levels, not them make or break, right? To the point where it's not like here you are Mason, like you select certain colleges you apply for and you get in.
Yeah.
You have to list the secondary school you're going to go, like your option 1, and you getting these options based on your grades. So it was a big deal, right? And so coming from all that, coming in and being lazy, feeling like, oh, whatever, I now don't have to study anymore. And I think that it affected me. I became a little lazier, right? I started taking things for granted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it kind of reset my mentality, and that was the last time that I ever took things for granted. I was lazy. Like after that, I did everything. I was always making sure I was working hard, So he's another person, major influence in my life. And actually, a funny story, I did not want to leave Ghana, by the way.
Yeah.
When I literally got kicked out of Ghana.
Yeah.
Like, and again, it brings back when I said people come from opportunity. Remember, I grew up, that's all I knew.
Yeah.
Like, and I was, look, when it comes to resources, all that stuff, knowing what I know now, at the time, would I make this, at the time, I'm going to U.S.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But all I knew was that I had good friends.
Yeah.
I always ate. I had food. Like, the true sense of, and you are raised by a village.
Yeah.
It really happens in those places.
Absolutely.
Right? But there was never a day where I went to sleep hungry.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't have food, my neighbor would invite me to eat.
Yeah.
People took care of each other.
Yeah.
So I grew up there. Like, we had some hard times, but we also grew up organically in life. I'm talking about real life. Right? Look, no offense, I always tell my kids, I look, I'm like, man, you guys are not even enjoying. You have your iPads and you have all this stuff, but real life, honestly, probably slipped. Even the parts in U.S. where people actually live real life, I'm talking about the simple stuff.
Yeah.
You get up and it's like you have something to eat and you're at the door and you're playing with your friends outside all day.
Yeah.
You're playing the simple stuff. Find some sticks, rocks. You lived, right? And now my daughters will be home and like after, and they were good with it for as they're growing up because now they're becoming reliant, just like all these kids and some are becoming reliant on iPads and all that stuff. So when they don't have those things, it feels like they don't know how to have fun. They don't know how to be creative.
Right.
And again, my daughters are pretty good being creative, but now they've gone from when they were younger, before they got used to iPad. Now it's easier to say, oh, I'm bored, because they're not trying anymore to be right, because you just want to, it's easier to just, let me get the iPad. To scroll. Yeah. Right, and all that stuff. So I didn't want to come. My aunt looked at like, man, you say what?
Yeah.
You are out. You know how many people will kill to get a green card, right? So I didn't want to. Yeah. I was done, and I was gonna go to secondary school there. And it's a culture, like the secondary school.
You're
culture
looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Like we're in the boarding school now. Oh, I knew that 3 or 4, 5, 6 of my other buddies we're gonna go to the same secondary school. Yeah. And it's a boarding school culture in life, right? Yeah. And there's something to be said about it, right? You get dropped and you and your buddies. Yeah. That's what also, I think also that's what made it easy for me to be like, I could go in the army and I could be stationed somewhere. Yeah. I could adjust. There, you can drop in Alaska,
Yeah, you'll adjust.
and I'll
I
adjust
know it.
quick.
Yeah, I know
Right,
it.
but I didn't want to. I didn't want to come.
Yeah.
I literally didn't want to come to US.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you kidding? I'm going to go to Achimota. I'm going to go to this secondary school. I'm living in Ghana.
Yeah.
And
you had it all planned out.
Yeah, I had it all planned out, right?
Yeah.
So that's sometimes you think about this. My favorite place in all this area is Gravely Point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I try like
by the airport.
Yeah, I used to go there and I'll just sit there.
Yeah.
I love sometimes taking time for myself. Like I love driving.
Yeah.
And people never used to understand it, but when I drive, that's my time.
Yeah.
Like I would go to I'll drive to Florida for a tournament. I'll drive, I'm coaching, I'm like, I'll drive.
Yeah.
And so flying, I'm like, because I knew I was going to be in the car for 15 hours.
Yeah.
And that 15 hours was my time.
Yeah, you cherish that time.
Music.
Yeah.
I like people by the same at that time. So, I drive to North Carolina, I'll go and come back and like, man, you like driving. I'll go to you. I'm like, yeah, I'll drive, you know. And people don't like driving. Like people don't like sitting in the car. Like it was always hard for me. Like when I was going from Burke to when I had my job in Arlington, DC, and people are like, oh, I'm going to drive to the Kiss and Ride and hop on the train.
Yeah.
And I don't want to deal with traffic. Man, I loved it. I'm weird in that way. Like, cause I'm sitting in my car. Yeah. Even if I have to be in traffic for 2 hours, I'm in my car.
You have everything you need.
I have everything I need. I'm just, as long as I get where I'm like, and I'm just, the times I listen to music and I, maybe I just feel like reggae today. Yeah. And I'll listen to Lucky Dube is one of my favorite, listen to reggae or Bamala. And then there are times so in that 2 hours, no music, nothing. No radio, dead silent. I'm just driving. Yeah. And at times I just want to listen to radio.
Yeah, man.
But I always find those times I like preferring. So that's why I'll go to Gravely Point. I'll just get in the car, go sit there and just watch the planes landing. And just that peaceful time for me to reflect. Right? And I like that all these things or these moments in my life, they're still part of my life. Yeah. Because I do think about it. I do reflect on it. I like bringing back these memories. It's kind of like the fuel that I need to keep going every time. Yeah. Right? And every time something big happens or something major, I'm sitting there going, dude, man, like, I got it good. Yeah. You know what I mean? It can't be that bad. Yeah. Things are not that serious. Things are not that bad.
I think what you're describing is the process, right? So of you driving and having that time in the car, that me time. Right. You know what I mean? It's also just about, as you go through your story and you tell us about different parts of your life, it's really, I think it exemplifies the person that you became and that you're still evolving into throughout this process. Right. Does that make sense?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like if you look at your life and you just look at who you've evolved into along this way, like for you, I think that's who Rado is to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like this. So how do you feel about the person that you are today after everything that you've said?
I just wanted to mention, I think because of that, my mentality's always been go, go, go. And sometimes I don't, I used to not be able to take the time and just, and my wife helped with that, right? She grabbed a small friend, like another influence, right? And we used to battle because I had this mentality, go, go. And sometimes she just had them and, hey, take your time, slow down, think through it now, never, right? And so along the way, we had our battles where it's like different mentalities, but again, she, talk about influences where someone was like, oh, you know what? Now I have to take my time and look at things her way sometimes, right? It's not always just go and all those things. So, she's another person that I really wanted to mention that, has influenced, my life and shaping the way I see family, the way I see life, the way, I see getting together, just spending time.
So I want to, first of all, thank you for doing this interview, for sharing your story with us, but also thank you for coming into our lives, into our family, and helping my son, go to Europe, and all these experiences have helped to shape him. It's helped to shape us, and you're a huge part of that. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Maybe we'll do a part 2 another time, right?
Absolutely.
But I know it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed doing this, anytime.
We'll definitely do a part 2 for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thank you so much. Yep.